looked every way. I spelled it every way it could be spelled. I looked, nothing. So the only thing I surmise is that my father, yet again, is one step. If you Google Henry DePhillips, half of it is him and half of it's me. And we're in that battle, trying to monopolize Google. But somehow he got to the Rate My Professor site and was able to pull his stuff down. I don't know how that happened. Amazing power this man has. So Dad, you're not on Rate My Professor. I have no idea why. I would love to know what your hotness factor would have been. Anyway, a good example of information at your fingertips. This might make me the least popular guy in the room, at least with the professors. When I was at Trinity, what you know distinguishes you. You learn, and even in medical school, anatomy class, great example. You learn facts, figures, processes. Calculus was brutal. But you learn a lot, and then you take a test, right? And you spit back out and basically demonstrate what you know on the test, and then that's how you're rated. Am I correct? I can tell you that this is the big paradigm shift for education, in my opinion. In the world of business that I now live in, what you know doesn't really distinguish you very much anymore. Why? Because with this, I can get to anything I need. I can find out any fact, I can look up any word. I don't even have to spell correctly anymore. It's grammar school stuff. Go spell check, right? What knowledge or people you have access to is what distinguishes you today. In the business world, beyond the walls beyond Trinity. It's not what you know. So words like groupthink, I've been very blessed. If you go on my LinkedIn network, one of the things you'll find is that I have some crazy number, north of 1,000 contacts in my LinkedIn profile. A lot of those contacts I have met as I've gone through the world of business and healthcare and information technology, and it's a pretty impressive list. And one of the reasons that I bring value to the company that I'm working with today on this mission-based project is because if we need to get a hold of somebody who's an expert in this, or somebody who's got regulatory authority on that, or somebody who's got specific subject matter knowledge on that, they're in my network. I can get a hold of that person. I can take them to lunch, I can have a conversation, I can influence change. So I just am sharing with you, knowledge is important, but it has become quite a bit more important to leverage technology to be able to access knowledge. And accessing knowledge sometimes means accessing people, because people out there have knowledge. And that is the thing that I think distinguishes people in the world of business today. So keep that in mind. I was ecstatic to hear a couple things since I came on campus today. Number one is the interdisciplinary science program, learning about how science works, research methods. That's awesome. I think that's awesome, because if you understand the bigger picture, how you get from the question to the answer, how you get from point A to point B, that is probably much more valuable than knowing the right answer, in my opinion. I think the interdisciplinary program is great. I think that the fact that there is technology in the library, there's sharing, Rate My Professor, and everything that's come since then that I probably don't even know about, it's the sharing of that knowledge that becomes critically important. You'll find in companies, Apple's a great example. I like the Apple organization. I'm sorry Steve Jobs isn't there anymore, but he was famous for putting groups together to solve problems. And it's the combined knowledge of the group that gets the biggest problem solved rather than necessarily one individual. It's just a huge paradigm shift in education. Trinity seems to be embracing that. You seem to be benefiting from that. But just keep that big picture thing in the back of your mind. Make sense? Any hockey players in the room? Any hockey players who speak Latin in the room? No, just kidding. All right, hockey player. Show me two. I saw two hands. Come on.
I used to play hockey.
You used to play outside. That's good enough. Now, ice hockey or field hockey in your case?
Ice hockey.
All right, good. Because puck is not a field hockey thing. Ball. So skate to where the puck is. Yes? No? Good advice. Bad advice. Why? Bad advice. I agree with you. Why? Yeah, so if the puck's over there, and you skate over there, where's the puck going to be by the time you get there? It's going to be over there, right? So if you play, am I right? Where's the other puck? Make sense? Do you skate where the puck is? No, that's like old news. So think about, and there's an analogy here, just higher level thinking on lunch. Probably the first part of the day for most of you. So there's going to be some shiny objects. There's going to be some cool things. There's going to be things that are attractive that may take you some time to get there. But think about the fact that by the time you get, in our society, with change going at the pace it's going, by the time you get to the shiny thing, it's going to be dull, and it's going to be worn, and it's not going to be there anymore. What is the teaching in hockey? You already did a good job of answering. What's the teaching in hockey? Say again? I like that quote. So you're going in the right direction. You just got to get me the rest of the way there. Skate to open ice. Why do you skate to open ice? Because that's where the puck is going to be. Skate to where the puck is going to be. Who said that? I didn't say it this time, sorry. I didn't play hockey. I don't speak Latin, other than 3 words. Oh, come on, I'm not that old. Who said that? Oh my goodness, you guys don't know who that is? Am I that old?
I said Bobby Orr. No,
Bobby Orr! You're not even in the right country. He's a Boston Bruin. This is Edmonton, Canada. Wayne Gretzky, Edmonton Oilers. Why are you such a great hockey player? Because I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck is going to be. It's an analogy, guys. Think about your career path. Think about where you're going. Think about what's hot today. Facebook, if your goal is to work at Facebook or Google, forget it. By the time you get there, they're both going to be has-beens. Start looking for the next big thing. Just start looking for the next big thing. Recognize it before other people do. Skate to the open ice. If you guess right, the puck will be there. If you guess wrong, pick another piece of open ice, and the puck might be there. I've had to do it a couple times, and it's not bad. Be a change agent. All right, so Wayne Gretzky. Now you guys know who Wayne Gretzky is. Oh my goodness. So remember I talked about asking questions? I'm now going to cede complete control of this conversation to you. Why? Because I'm going to stop talking. You guys have a chance to ask questions. And whatever question you ask is going to drive the conversation. You're going to control the whole room. No pressure. Who has questions? Hard ones. Good ones.
How does Teledoc get around issues of liability and malpractice between physicians and patients?
How does Teledoc get around the issue of liability and malpractice between the physicians and the patients? It's a really good question. Like 25% of what I do during the day is to avoid liability. So medical liability is a situation where a physician treats a patient, the treatment is incorrect, and there's a bad outcome. You have to have both of those, by the way. Incorrect treatment alone is not malpractice, there has to also be a bad outcome. And a bad outcome can't be pain and suffering. It has to be something real. So how do we avoid that? It's a really good question. So when I was in private practice several years ago, I would take calls with other physicians, and when one of their patients would call me, I was on my own. I didn't know the patient, I had no idea what their history was, took a phone call in the middle of the night or whatever, and I had to dispense therapy. So it was a little bit of kind of a cowboy sort of thing. What Teledoc has done is taken that exact same scenario and put a whole lot of fences around it, really good fences. So we have clinical protocols for the treatment of uncomplicated problems. So if it's complicated, not doing it, go to the emergency room or go see your vet. We have protocols that they can follow, that their docs are trained against, and we audit 15% of all charts against. We provide the medical liability insurance for all the docs in the program. Knock wood, 11-year-old company, 150,000 medical consults a year at this point. We've not had a single malpractice claim in the entire history of the company. I really hope I can say that 5 years from today. I plan to. We're going to give it our best. Yeah. So that's how we do it. And no DEA-controlled substances, so no opiates, narcotics, benzodiazepines. So we basically put fences around what you can do over the phone, really tight fences, and then we monitor it. So it's a good question. Thank you for asking. And by the way, that video is a little bit dated, it's like a year old. Our wait time is now 16 minutes across the country, so a little bit better than that. And of course, the price is also $40 instead of $38. That happens. Other questions? Yes, sir.
What's your company's opinion on Affordable Care Act, and does it affect you at all?
The Affordable Care Act, what's our company's opinion, and does it affect us? The second question is much easier to answer. Yes, it affects all of healthcare. It's a fascinating thing, and remember, one person's opinion. I'm just going to say that up front. What does our company think of it? Interestingly, the Affordable Care Act attempts to, probably the biggest goal of the Affordable Care Act is to move people who are currently uninsured into the ranks of the insured by making health insurance affordable. Why somebody who pays nothing for health insurance today would want to pay $100 a month for health insurance tomorrow is totally beyond me, but that's a discussion for another day. The Affordable Care Act is probably going to help us, our company, and so we're in some ways a fan of the Affordable Care Act. It's not a political statement, it's not a vote of confidence in Obama, but when you start to move people who are currently uninsured into a finite system, then the cost has to be spread among a larger number of people, right, by numbers alone. And so what our company does is just basically we grab the low-hanging fruit. If you have an uncomplicated problem, a cold, bronchitis, UTI, whatever, urinary tract infection, whatever, you can get help in a very efficient, low-cost setting as opposed to everything else, all your other options today. When you start putting some financial pressure on that same system, you begin to increase the importance of that low-hanging fruit and the low-cost part of the spectrum. So in the end, the Affordable Care Act will probably help us. I will tell you, I think I can say this, that our CEO has been a guest at the White House and met with the president, with some other CEOs, and the reason that the president convened the group, this was just a couple months ago, I think it was October, that he convened the group was because the government pays for somewhere between 40 and 60% of all health care in the country through Medicare and Medicaid. You may or may not know that, but they just think half, and you got what the government's contribution to that $3 trillion industry is. It's big. And so what the Obama administration is looking for is to talk to some CEOs on the private sector, because the private sector usually solves problems like that in the public sector, and they're smart enough to know that. So they invite private sector folks in and say, if we transpose your model into all of Medicare, how would that help us? If we transpose it to all of Medicaid in all 50 states, how would that help us? So those discussions are now ongoing. So I think on balance, the Affordable Care Act is, we look favorably on the Affordable Care Act, because I think it will, when you're mission-based and you're trying to do the right thing, and the government's trying to do the right thing, usually your missions line up, and that's, in our case, good. Great question. Thank you. Other questions?
So you commented about, in the health professions field, we like to call them pointy people, the ones that aren't well-rounded but actually have this passion, this specialty that they can bring. You want to be pointed. And yet you're saying that this generation is going to have, it's going to change careers or jobs every 3 years. How do you, if you're a musician or the world's best pottery maker, and you have to change jobs every 3 years for the next 30 years of your life, how many different kinds of pottery jobs can you get in 30 years? How do you find that balance between specialization?
Did everybody hear the question? Did everybody hear? I'm not picking on you.
No, that's
and I know I have to meet with you later today, so I'll be in your office. Listen to, the question was a great question. It was an awesome question. But when you listen to the articulation of the question, what sorts of words did you hear? If you have to change jobs every 3 years, right? I'm not making fun. I get to change jobs every 3 years.
I don't think you sound like my wife. I don't think I said that, but you said that.
Did he say it? Did he say it? Come on, help me out. So the answer is, it's a really good question. And the answer is that, remember the impatience is a virtue thing. You start your career path, and you're going to make the best guess you can make as a 22-year-old college graduate into where you should wind up the following, July 1st. Once you're there for 6 months, you're either going to find out that, yeah, that was a really good decision, I like it here, or more likely, you're going to find out, you know what, this really stinks. That was a bad decision, or, maybe not the best decision. I didn't know it then, I know more now, I'm smarter now, so I'm going to make a different decision. So at that point, you need to decide whether you're going to make a move. And if you're going to make a move, what are the criteria you're going to apply? Well, you have more experience, so you have a longer list of, here's what I like about what I want to do, and here's what I don't like, and I want to do more of this and less of that. And then the other, the best indicator of the success of a business is green. It's universal. Everybody agrees the value of it, right? So you're probably going to make a move that has a higher income level. And the reason it's going to have a higher income level is because you're going to be able to create more value for the company. They can afford to pay you more, right? So that goes hand in hand. If I guess the best, so it's going to be that kind of a process for the group that's in this room. The best example I can give, this may sound crazy, but I still think it fits really well. When I was in high school, or in college, just about to go off to medical school, I got to be a lifeguard on the Jersey Shore for several years. And there was, and at the time, I got a position at a great beach, you know, great scenery, great everything you can imagine as a lifeguard. But there was this one guy who I hung out with in those summers, who over the course of 12 weeks had 8 jobs. Every 2 weeks, he would have a different job. And I was like, dude, what's up? 8 jobs in a 12-week summer. And you know what he said to me? He said, every time I move, I make more money. So what he did was he said, okay, this is good, I'm not fun. Oh, look at that over there. And I'm not saying you should change jobs every 2 weeks. That's an extreme example. But if you're uncomfortable, if you're unhappy, if you're working with someone of not high integrity, if you're creating more value than you're receiving, then I advocate for impatience and take action. Do something about it. Get your resume out there. Leverage your network. Talk to the people you know. You know how I wound up in the position that I'm in today? The CEO called me. He said, I need you. And I was like, oh, let me look at this and evaluate it. And I was sort of in the mood for a change at the time anyway. But it's not I have to, it's I get to. It's I want to, I hope. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And remember, those are averages, and you got some that are more, some that are less. But in the world of technology, which everyone in this room is going to be in the world of technology, whatever you do, whether it's music, arts, science, it's going to be technology powered. And in the world of technology, the world is your source of knowledge, and the world is your job base. I haven't worked in an office for about 8 years now. I work remotely because I work in the technology industry. And I could be parked on the side of the road in my truck and have full web access, WebEx, videos, audios, Google Hangout, everything. So I haven't worked in an office for about 8 years. I highly recommend that, by the way. I actually built an office we had on a farm in Tennessee, so I built an office in the barn, and I'm 2 stalls down from what used to be my daughter's horse's stall, only mine's nicer than his was. And I have Wi-Fi. Other questions? Wow. I finished with 1 minute to spare.
Can I ask one more?
You're not Kathy Andrews anymore, are you?
No, I kept my name when I married.
So Kathy Andrews and I went to high school together. It's the first time I've seen her in, I'm embarrassed to say how many years,
We
but a long
don't
time.
need to say how many years.
Yeah, that's right, you're only 28, so it couldn't have been 30 years ago.
Right. I just had a question about Teladoc, and do you hear from a lot of hypochondriacs? I mean, I'm kind of curious if some people end up calling over and over and over.
Regular question, so tell us, do we hear from a lot of hypochondriacs?